This ship should not work anymore. Built in 1991, she's one of the smallest and oldest ships in the entire cruising industry. So when I heard they spent millions trying to bring it back to life, I had one question. Was this a real transformation or just a fresh coat of paint? So I did what any reasonable person would do. I spent 4 days on board, stayed in the cheapest cabin, and paid attention to literally everything that actually matters. Because when a cruise line bets this big on an old ship, the results tell you a lot about where they're headed next. Margaritaville at sea sits in a very different lane than most cruise lines. They're not chasing the newest megaships, the biggest attractions, or the flashiest tech. They're focused on keeping cruising simple and affordable, and the Margaritaville at Sea Paradise is the clearest expression of that strategy. It's the oldest and smallest cruise ship sailing from the US of any mainstream cruise line, and that alone makes it an interesting test case because ships like this usually get written off, not reinvested in. But instead of walking away, Margaritaville at Sea chose to spend real money upgrading the experience. But this video isn't just about what changed, it's about what that investment actually means in a world of megaships and who this kind of cruise is designed for. Oh, and if we haven't met yet, I'm Evan from Family at Sea. If this is your first time watching my channel, I'm glad you're here. And if you've been here a while, you already know how much I appreciate you. If you're ready, I am. Let's go. All right, and in the interest of being transparent, a quick note here before we jump in. This cruise was provided at no cost, but I wasn't paid for this review. As always, everything I share on my channel is based on my real experiences, and all of it is backed up by what I filmed along the way. The first impression started before I even took my first steps on the ship. Embarkation was the smoothest I've ever had on Margaritaville at Sea, and that set the tone quickly. I dropped my bags at the front of the terminal, cleared security, and headed up the escalator into their terminal where I was met with a dozen check-in desks and not a single line at any of them. Once I cleared check-in and got my sail pass for the cruise, as I headed to the waiting area, I was greeted with an area where I could book spa appointments, reserve specialty dining, and knock out the usual onboard to-dos before boarding even begins, which is honestly amazing. And more cruise lines should definitely do this as it fills time you would otherwise just be waiting. It sounds minor, but it allows you to start enjoying the cruise from the moment you board. As I made my way up the end of the gangway, my eyes fixed on the iconic blue flip-flop that greets you as soon as you take your first steps on the ship, and from the moment you see it, you're officially on island time. From there, I headed up to Deck 8 where the public spaces begin, and the first area I walked into is the Emporium Lounge. Now, I've been on this ship twice before, so I had a good idea of what to expect, but this is where my expectations definitely began to shift. I'd seen photos of the redesigned space, but they simply didn't do it justice. The space is dramatically brighter and more inviting than before, with tons of comfortable seating broken up into sections that make it easy to gather with friends or make new ones. There's a large bar, a central stage, and throughout the cruise, this space stays active with trivia, live music, and daytime events. And honestly, I couldn't help think it finally feels like the social center of the ship. As I made my way forward from there, I checked out the new tattoo parlor, which replaced the old library, and it's a bright, open space. And over the course of the sailing, I met a number of guests who got tattoos on board, and they were so excited to show them off, saying the tattoo artist was one of the best they've ever worked with. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a small guy, and at this point, I was beginning to get hungry, so I headed up to Deck 10 and grabbed a bite at the newly reimagined High Tide Market that replaced the old Port of Indecision buffet. This is a noticeable step up from what it used to be, both in atmosphere and food quality. Instead of long lines, it's organized into food stations with a variety of options, including pizza, sandwiches, international options, and my favorite, Mexican Cutie Cantina, where I grabbed my lunch before I continued exploring the ship. With my belly full, I set out to see what else had changed, so I made my way up to the License to Chill pool deck, which is the main pool space, and I was impressed with the new cabanas they've added around the perimeter of the space that let you secure a poolside spot on a sea day without having to wake up at dawn. And they didn't stop there either. There's a new pool deck around the adults-only 12-volt pool that is vibrant and colorful, and it really brings new life to the space. Now, I had heard the casino had some new upgrades as well, so I stopped by there, and what I found was new lighting, new carpets, and some other small touches to really rejuvenate the space. And as always, the casino is still smoke free and spacious enough to actually enjoy without having to squeeze through big crowds. Now, as I mentioned, I'd already been on the ship twice before, but with these upgrades, one thing was definitely obvious. A lot of thought went into how this ship feels from the moment you board, and the new upgrade showed that Margaritaville at sea isn't going anywhere, and well, I'm here for it. At this point, I was ready to settle in, so I made my way to my cabin, which was 7092, and it's an interior cabin at the mid of deck 7. Now, I'll say the room is on the smaller side, but the layout works. You've got a comfortable queen size bed, a decent amount of storage for an interior cabin, and enough floor space to move around without constantly sidestepping your luggage. The closet setup was functional, and there were more hangers than I usually expect in this category. Design-wise, it's clearly an older ship. The finishes lean darker and more traditional, which gives the room a slightly dated feel compared to newer ships, but nothing felt worn out or uncomfortable. The bathroom was compact but usable with a circular shower that's typical for interiors on ships of this era. Water pressure was solid and counter space was adequate for the basics, just don't expect room to spread out. Now, one thing worth noting is that this cabin can sleep up to 4 thanks to bunk beds that pull down from the back wall, but it would definitely be tight with 4 adults, but for kids or short sailing, it's doable. Overall, the cabin worked well as a home base. If you're planning to spend most of your time out around the ship and just need a comfortable place to sleep and shower, it does exactly what it's supposed to. One of the biggest reasons people book this ship is simple. The pricing is hard to ignore. Interior cabins on the Paradise start around $150 a night for 2 people, and ocean views aren't much more than that at $165 per night. That's firmly in budget-friendly territory, especially compared to most mainstream cruise lines sailing from the US. Suites are more expensive at roughly $500 a night, but these are nicely appointed rooms, and they're also the only cabins on the ship that have a balcony, and there's only 10 of them. But at that price point, the real question isn't whether it's cheap, it's what kind of experience you're actually getting for the money. Because a low fare might get people on board, but it's the day-to-day experience that determines whether they'll actually have a good time and, well, come back for more. And that's exactly why we Book Through Cruises it. Instead of guessing, you're working with people who actually understand the ships, the pricing patterns, and how different cabins change the onboard experience. They've saved us thousands over the years, helped us land better cabins, and kept us from making choices we would have regretted later. Which is more than I can say for Frank, who once told me, "Evan, I don't need a travel agent, I'll figure it out." Frank, you lost the deposit on your last cruise because you forgot about your final payment date. With their low price guarantee and people who actually care, Cruises it makes booking simpler, cheaper, and a whole lot less stressful. So click the link in the description below or call the number on the screen and tell them Evan from Family at Sea sent you. You'll be glad you did. One thing that becomes really clear once you've been on board for a few days is just how small this ship is, and that's both a drawback and a huge advantage. You're never far from anywhere you need to go, and there's no long walks, no long waits for an elevator, and no feeling like you need to plan your day around getting from one end of the ship to the other. And that ease of movement matters more than you think, especially as the cruise goes on. And because of that smaller footprint, something else happens naturally. You start seeing the same people over and over again, and by the end of the cruise, it genuinely felt like I had a whole new group of friends on board. Conversations carried over from one night to the next, and the ship felt more familiar and communal instead of anonymous. One of the biggest social hubs was Keys on the Water, which is the dueling piano bar. And it's one of the spaces that wears a lot of hats. They've got live music, sing-alongs, karaoke trivia, and even bingo, and it consistently drew a crowd without ever feeling overwhelming. Became a reliable, something's always happening here spot. And overall, the ship never felt crowded. I never waited in lines for anything, and nothing ever felt chaotic or overrun. And that smaller scale really shows up in the day-to-day experience in the best possible way. Food options on board are limited, but the upside is the quality is consistently solid across the board. The main dining room Finns handled most meals and did it well. The menu isn't trying to reinvent anything, but the food was reliably good and the service felt genuinely friendly, not rushed or scripted. For a quieter, more intimate dinner, JWB Steakhouse was an easy standout. The prime ribeye was excellent, cooked a perfect medium rare, and the restaurant has a menu that actually feels like an upgrade instead of just a themed add-on where the food really isn't any better. And then there's Farside Sushi, which has a smaller menu, but everything I tried landed. It's a focused offering done well, and my servers there, Angelita and Nimari, made that venue one of the highlights of the cruise. Now, I mentioned the high tide market already, but it was a great casual grab and go option, and the cheeseburger and Paradise Burger Bar at the aft of Deck 10 was better than it had any right to be. But the bar scene is where the ship really finds its rhythm. Hemisphere Dancer Craft Spirits Bar quickly became one of my favorite spaces on board. The cocktail menu is thoughtfully put together, and both Vlad and Anak were amazing bartenders, but it was the piano music after the shows in the evenings that really set this venue apart. The Euphoria Lounge was another favorite spot with a bartending team that is truly fantastic. The drink menu had some really great options, and the live music and events brought constant energy. And guys, if you set sail on the Paradise, do not miss Crazy Quest here, as it's a ton of fun. Keys on the Water pulls double duty as a hangout and a late night party spot, and the white hot neon party there was a blast and keeps going well past midnight, and it was honestly a lot more fun than I expected it to be. There's also a coffee shop on board with solid coffee, but the real danger there actually lives in the dessert case. I'm pretty sure I got diabetes just looking at some of them. And around the pool, the license to chill bar stays lively throughout the day, and the nearby 5 o'clock somewhere bar pairs perfectly with a burger and some sunshine. And the 12-volt bar has some of my favorite drinks on the ship. But what really ties it all together is that each bar has its own distinct menu. Instead of the drink menus being copy pasted from one bar to the next like you see on a lot of cruise lines, having a different menu at each bar gives you an actual reason to move around and try different spaces and makes the food and drink experience feel more intentional and a lot more fun. Entertainment on the Paradise was way better than I expected for a ship this small. The Stars on the Water Theater is the main venue, and the shows there consistently impressed me. Even though I'd seen these productions on previous sailings, they weren't just running the same shows on repeat. Each time I've been on board, the song lists from the shows they have changed, which keeps things from feeling stale if you've already sailed on the same ship before. And the comedy show on night 3 was easily the best comedian I've seen on any cruise ship. Outside the theater, live music is really where the ship shines. There's music happening throughout the ship in different venues, and you never quite know what you're going to walk into as you move from place to place. And that made it easy to stop, grab a drink, and settle in without feeling like you had to plan your night around a single showtime. If you're looking for something more energetic, the Hemisphere nightclub up on deck 14 delivers. It's a large space with a proper dance floor, and the DJ did a great job keeping the energy up late into the night. For a ship this size, the energy never felt dead or forced. Overall, the entertainment isn't about big spectacle or massive productions. It's about variety, consistency, and energy in the right places. And for the kind of cruise this ship is aiming to be, it works. Service on the Margaritaville at Sea Paradise has been the most consistently friendly I've ever experienced on any cruise ship. And that's not a one-off impression. This is my third time on board, and that friendliness and energy from the crew has been the same every time. I actually had a crew member on a different cruise line recently tell me he had a friend leave them to go on Margaritaville at sea, and they told them that the leadership there actually cares about the crew and not just numbers that show up on a survey. That makes a big difference both in terms of their efficiency and the genuine warmth of the team. Dining venues are efficient, but the interactions never feel rushed or transactional. Crew members remember faces, strike up conversations, and seem to actually enjoy being there, which makes a huge difference. And there are a few people who really embody that culture. Anna Banana might be my favorite crew member on any cruise line. Her positivity is infectious in the best way, and she's the kind of person who single-handedly elevates the experience around her. She's also the rare crew member that I'd honestly book another sailing for just to see her again. Idam is another standout. Somehow, no matter which bar I walked into, he seemed to be there serving drinks with a smile on his face. But beyond being a great bartender, he brings a calm, welcoming presence that makes every stop feel familiar. And the atmosphere on board reflects that same energy. Thanks in part to the Heroes Sail Free program, Margaritaville at Sea ships attract a lot of hardworking, genuinely good people from all walks of life. Even though this is a budget-friendly cruise, it never felt chaotic or out of control like you might expect to see on some other budget cruise lines. This isn't a rowdy party ship. It's relaxed, social, and easygoing with people who are just looking to unwind and have a good time. And that combination of strong service and the right kind of crowd ends up being one of this ship's biggest strengths. If you're considering the Margaritaville at Sea Paradise, a few choices will make a big difference in how much you enjoy it. First, timing matters. The Monday through Friday sailing is the better option in my opinion, and I'd give that same advice on any ship on any cruise line, but on a ship this small, doing the weekdays sailing with less people on board means you'll have more time and more moments to connect with the crew, and they're the highlight for a ship like this. And honestly, guys, your mindset matters just as much. This isn't a mega ship and it's not a luxury experience. It's a laid back cruise built around warm service, familiar faces, and, well, a relaxed pace with ocean views. If you come in expecting spectacle and nonstop wow moments, you'll miss what this ship does best. But if you come in valuing genuine interactions and an easygoing atmosphere, it will be an experience that keeps bringing you back time and time again. And I'll say cabin selection is another quiet win. Sticking to decks 6 and below will help minimize noise since you're less likely to have busy public spaces above or below your room. And on a smaller ship, that kind of planning goes a long way. And finally, plan your nights accordingly. Because of the ship size, they only have a 9:30 p.m. showtime rather than an early and late option. So if the entertainment is important to you like it is to me, make sure you've got the energy for that late start. The Paradise rewards people who know what they're booking and why. So get those details right, and the experience comes together in a much more satisfying way. And here's something that might surprise some of you guys. The Margaritaville at Sea Paradise is one of my favorite ships. Yes, it's old and yes, it's small, but guys, you're connected to the ocean in a way that few ships deliver these days with an amazing crew, friendly passengers, and just a really good time. And it's honestly a ship you'll see me continue to come back to time and time again because it's genuinely that good. If you're chasing massive shows, endless attractions, and constant wow moments, there's definitely better options. But if you want an easygoing cruise with genuine connections and a laid-back vibe, this ship delivers. But here's the bad news. A lot of you are probably sitting there wondering, yeah, but Evan, what's the catch? How does Margaritaville at Sea provide such a great experience like you say they do and charge so little for it? Well, here's the good news. You don't have to wonder any longer because my next video explains exactly what their strategy is and how they're able to charge the low prices they do without sacrificing on the quality of the experience. So don't stop here, watch that one next, and I'll show you exactly how Margaritaville at Sea pulls it off. I'll see you over there. If you're ready, I am. Let's go.